Hello, I'm Tommy Moore from the Bar Titzer Lab, and in this video I wanted to look at getting up when you sat down. Now, I'm sat down on a stool right now. It's important to think that when the world reopens, as it surely will do, and hopefully very soon, just how much of your life is spent sat down. At work, at places of education, when you're on public transport, when you're in private transport. Huge portions of your life are spent sat down. Even in your own home, you being sat down probably takes up at least half the amount of time of your waking hours in your home. At least that would be true for most of the Western world. And I think we neglect many times getting up off a thing and being able to do so combatively. It's very, very important to be able to train that, practice that, make that part of your normal practice. So again, what I want to do in this session is just look at what are some of the facets about combatively getting up, what can you think of, and how can that help you with your training. But do burn into your mind, burn into your hard disk that so much of most normal people's lives is spent sat down, being able to fight from that position against an opponent which is also sat down or standing up is key. We're going to be focusing here on people that are standing up. So I'm going to reposition myself to bob. Now if you imagine, I may well be on a train, on a plane, on a bus, and this opponent's standing. Now let's look at some of the advantages that he has. Because he's standing, he can activate a lot more power in his strikes. He can use his hips and his feet more readily. He can use gravitational force that much more readily. He's much more equipped for power striking than I am sat down. He can also use that weight, use that position to pin me to my seat and beat the fuck out of me. So just with a small amount of leaning, a small amount of hand or arm pressure, he can maintain me being stuck to this seat as he continues to smash me from above. He can also, if he decides, disengage when he wants to. Because I am sat down and he's standing up, anytime he wants to leave, he can. Gives him choice and control. Anytime he wants to step back and pull out a knife, pull out a hammer, do something much worse, he's got the opportunity. He's got the opportunity to step back, reassess, and if he's a bad guy, that reassessment probably doesn't mean good things for you. So he can get out of the picture if he wants to, he can arm himself or tool himself up that much more readily, and outside of all of those things, is in a much better, much more dominant striking and pinning position, which for me as a person sat down is not particularly great news. What are some of the pros for me? Some of the pros for the sat down party is it's relatively difficult, if you're not stupid, for him to hit me cleanly on the jaw, even with a small ducking of my head. If I've got some wherewithal, his ability to land a clean shot on something to shake my brain and knock me out is much harder to achieve. When we're standing up top, boom, boom, much easier to do. When I'm much lower, it's harder to access my button, it's harder to knock me out. And you see this in modern heavyweight boxing, where you have smaller heavyweights and you have much, much taller heavyweights. It is quite hard for the taller man, unless he's had a number of rounds, to knock out that smaller man, because access to the chin is much more difficult, and we're not used to, as a rule, punching down. When we're sparring or getting ready for fights, we tend to fight people equal, if not bigger than us. We don't get huge amount of experience fighting down. But these are very, very limited pros for the sat down party. The odds are absolutely in his favour. So my camera equipment doesn't necessarily reach to my feet, but I would advise this, that as soon as you feel there may be a threat, making sure that you raise your rear heel, your strong leg heel, off the floor just a little. Just like you might if you were in a normal boxing stance. The ability to raise that heel means that getting up is very important. So raised heel, especially your back heel, very, very key. And you need to try and wean yourself off the notion of using other things to help you get up. It would be very tempting, for instance, if you're on a plane or a train, or even in other type of vehicle, to grab a seat, to grab a pole, to grab one of those hanging kind of handle elements, to grab something to assist on your way. And you may feel that that might get you up faster, which it may well do. But it also means that I've lost at least one hand to something which is not in combat, that is not keeping me safe nor causing him damage. So I've lost a weapon, I've lost a tool, and I've lost something to protect me. So again, it's important to get good at being able to do this unassisted and having your hands with you without having to rely on other objects to hold. It's very easy to be lazy, even in extremis. So you sat down. One of the key factors for me is the trajectory in which I raise up. Now, typically, when we get up out of a seat, we stand up and we navigate our way through to whatever we need to do. This is my bus stop. I stand up, I navigate to the front of the bus. I need to go to the bathroom on a plane. I stand up, I navigate into the aisle. In these situations, and bear in mind he could be very close, or he could be approaching in a threatening way that we don't like. For the sake of the camera, I'm going to have him in this middle distance. An important thing, no matter what technique you plug into, in my opinion, is making sure that your trajectory goes diagonally up into the opponent. If I've decided to explode combatively, there's no point in me wasting the motion of being up and then trading. I can make much better use of my energy bursting up in this direction, going straight at him. So again, important, basic, raise your heel. Very, very important. Next thing is, make sure your chin is generally tucked. Make it still hard for him to hit your chin. But again, don't lose sight of the opponent. If you tuck your head too much, he'll start banging you on the back of the head, the back of the neck, which may be much worse for you than being hit in the jaw. So it is a trade-off. But again, make your chin a little bit less accessible if you can. The heel is raised, the chin's dropped a little, and you're exploding violently upwards and forwards. Not straight up and out, you're going this way, this angle. So you're coming into the opponent and you're using, you imagine I was about to dive into a swimming pool. I'm using that diving feel, so my weight is coming up and over and in. So if I was to go from sitting and diving into a swimming pool, my weight, my mass has this kind of wave motion, which is what I want, because I want to crash into him with mass. No matter what tool I put in there, my ability to drive in here is key. My ability to go straight up and at him. So, what techniques are most conducive? So, you know that no matter what range he's in, you don't want to be sat down, because his advantages beat your advantages. You want to know that you can use and rely on your legs to get you there, which requires you to have yourself on your toes and to lean your nose almost over your toes. You're going nose over toes, you're going forward into the opponent. And that diagonal drive, like someone that's diving into a swimming pool, is a great way to imagine and use explosive force to do so. So let's imagine super slow, we end up here. Now this is the juncture in this journey. This is the juncture I need to decide whether I'm going to grapple, cover, or strike. And that really depends on many, many variables, including your own skills, your own size, your abilities, and your preferences. But let's imagine that the first thing we're going to do is going to cover. So if we're going to cover, it means that the blows might already be happening, or we might be firing them as we step up. So a couple of options available to us. One would be a simple O'Neill cover. So as we rise and drive forward, we bring both of our forearms across, making our elbows nice and pointy, tucking our chin between our shoulders. So again, super slow motion, you drive up, bang, and you end up into the opponent this way. A couple of benefits to this. The elbows really fucking hurt. It's very simple and easy to remember, but you don't obscure your view, and you keep your chin and neck relatively safe. Once you've hit this, gripping someone's clothing and pushing them back in that kind of scissoring motion, or pulling them in, is relatively easy to attain. So from that O'Neill cover, bursting up, from here, gripping his clothing and driving him further up, say the corridor, the bus, doing stuff, moving him through space to a better situation for you, is relatively easy off this double cross grip. And it's quite hard for him to strike you effectively from here. So you do have that option. You have things that are a little bit more spike orientated. So you may wish to explode up with a single spike here. So again, you're covering yourself using this hard spike at the elbow. In this instance, we're going one-handed. And we're spiking that into the solar plexus, into the heart, wherever that may be. Bang. And this hand is now free for us to strike, prevent ourselves being struck, to pull, push or manipulate. So you've got a couple of options from here from a single spike. Again, nothing wrong with that option. And thirdly, you've got a double housing. So a double housing would be something like this, like this, like this. And there are many, many variants. It's very endemic on the reality-based self-defense scene. I'm not huge on these myself. I find them a little bit abstract. Some things that don't really manifest for me. I feel that this manifests itself a little bit more naturally to me. Of the ones, just a basic. I find this is of those types of shape, probably the best. But again, just because it's not for me doesn't mean it's not for you. So again, heel raised, trajectory up and at him. And we're driving in with the shape here. So again, you're looking to spike with the elbow or elbows, crash in, grab, manipulate, cause some damage. So you've got a double wrap, like an O'Neill wrap, bang, which I feel is very good for ballistic grappling. You've got a single spike, bang, which is quite good for the range of options. Grappling, striking, weapon drawing, you've got more options there. And thirdly, you've got the encasement. So again, some useful tools to think about. Now, that's if you want to drive up and crash. That's if you want to, A, make sure you don't get hurt too much on your journey up there. So if he's just started to rain bombs, exploding up, like so, that might be the most prudent choice. However, you may wish that actually you want to strike instead. So a couple of striking options that work very well from an ascending position. So again, same principles. Have your awareness. If you can stand up before you are obliged to stand up, it's better for you. But again, let's assume that shit's happened. Nasty McBad guy over here is already very close or coming very close. We want to strike. So a couple of options that work. My first and my favoured is the chin jab. World War II classic chin jab. And in this instance, I'm going to burst up and manipulate where his right hand is. So I'm going to throw a bit of junk in his machine. By driving up, I'm getting an overhook round his right hand. Now obviously if his right hand's in motion, if it's pointing and swearing, then in that instance I'm just grabbing him round the back. It doesn't really matter. But if I can catch him unawares, grabbing him round this arm to render his right arm relatively useless, making it harder for him to draw a weapon or to hit me with his most powerful hand, that's very useful. And as I do so, stepping very, very close, using the base of the palm of the hand up into his chin, aiming to rock his head beyond his arse. And again, it's the percussion of that strike and then the incidental closing over the eyes, from which you may wish to drive forward and knock him backwards, or rake them out venomously and do something else. So you can, once that's achieved, you can keep driving forward or rake out and do something else. Either option, perfectly splendid. But the main benefit for the chin jab for me is that it takes a right arm out of the game most times. So I drive in looking to just neutralise his right arm. It allows me to land a high percentage hand safe shot from here. It allows me then to get extra brownie points by really hurting those eyes. And because I'm moving this way, I keep moving myself away from the chair. So I keep driving him, beating him up, battering him to fuck. If I can't drive him back any further, you may wish to break that through, bang, 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 do other shit from there. But taking away the ability of his right hand, applying that World War II chin jab, making sure you raise the heel first, burst up this way, straight away, I can fire myself in, essentially like a bat out of hell. Just want to really fuck him up from there. Another option is that you may wish to do the exact same thing, but elbow. Now I find that it's very important to smother that right hand. As soon as you get up, the standing operating procedure should be dominate where the right hand is, or where the right hand could be. Even if his arm's up, if I can get under that right arm, I make it very hard for him to attack me with the dominant arm. So I do the exact same motion, but now the elbow is coming in either to the chest, to the throat, or to the jaw, depending on your comparative height and confidence level. So exact same as the chin jab, up until the striking tool. From here, driving that straight in. And again, making sure I keep driving through him, because it's very important that I don't get knocked back down into my seat. If I get pushed, shoved, hit back to where I began in the seat, now he can start to pin me and really beat me up. So it's very important that as soon as I get out of this seat, I don't allow myself to go back in it. I drive away from that as far away as I can. To do that, I need to cause injury, pain, I need to have momentum. That's where the bursting, being ballistic, being nasty with those strikes makes a lot of sense. Now you can, of course, I'll take the hat off of this, you can operate both hands if you wish. So you can burst up. I would always advise still going to the right hand side, maintain a grip of both, but use your head to smash in, both as a strike, as a headbutt, but also as head control for a more grappling orientated rush. So you're hitting him, you're getting the ballistics of the headbutt, but then you keep smashing through him, you keep driving him back. So whether it's the palm heel, whether it's the elbow, or whether it's the headbutt, and the headbutt offers more risk of damage to yourself, unless you've practiced at it, but it also means that I can dominate both hands relatively well. I can drive, I can encapsulate him, headbutt, and getting that head under the jaw is a really good way to shift the body. So, but when all said and done, make sure you take the time to practice fighting getting up, because you spend a huge amount of your time from that seated position. Make sure you practice it with multiples and people being very close and relatively far away, so you know the difference between being able to preemptively come up and smash, or when he's right down on top of you, that's when you go. But it's important, raise the heel, burst up this way, and my main advice is dominate where the right hand is so that you can continue the fight in safety. If you've got the grappling skills or the wherewithal, you may wish to do a find and replace. So let's imagine I rose up in the O'Neill guard. Let's say I rose up and didn't strike, but I covered. Now I've got this here, I may wish then to pivot and put him into the seat. So another valid option is to do a bit of a switcheroo. As soon as you've smashed into him, you could drive him further up, say the gangway, the corridor, the central aisle of the train, and fight him that way. Or you could decide to pivot, chunk him down into the seat that you were in, and then apply the same advantages that he had, just a lot more effectively. You pin him down with your hand, smash him up, bring your weight to bear on him so he's crushed down in that seat as you rain shots on him, being very mindful not to land your fist on hard bits of skull. So you can palm it if you want, punch to the body, elbow wherever the fuck you like. But again, being able to launch up in that cover, then do a switcheroo and push him back into the seat that you were in is actually a very good tactic and contains the threat and allows you to put the beating on him. If you burst up out, bang, from here, you're going to have to continue this fight. You might have got the momentum now in your favour, you might have turned the tide, but you will still need to finish this as you would any other conflict. So, again, useful thing to think about. I'd say more than any of the techniques I discussed, being able to cover in a number of variants, being able to stand up and striking at a good angle. The main thing is just to think about it. Make sure you're cognizant of fighting, trying to stand up. Understand how many scenarios it's in and what you might wish to do, and then train it, test it, spar it, have a play with it. It's a very, very underutilised bit of training. In the same way, we tend to hugely underutilise our attacks to and defences from being parallel to each other, being side by side. Can you imagine the number of scenarios where we're at bars, pubs, clubs, restaurants, we're at parents' evenings, we're at cinemas, where we're side by side to people. So as well as being able to defend yourself from sat down, this is a really neglected range and situation, but it's humanly common across everything we do as humans. Everything we do as humans, a lot of the time when we're in public, we find ourselves side by side. So being able to immediately do stuff to the side is very important to learn and very important to drill. And being able to do stuff from being sat down is very important to do. So make sure you give those a play.